Go down on your knees. I said go down on your knees now. The officer's voice cracked like a whip, pistol pointed squarely at the man in the sharp black suit. You're under arrest. Whatever you say or do here might be used against you in a court of law. The man did not flinch. He did not speak. Not a tremor passed through his frame. Calm, composed, every nerve alert, every muscle controlled. Special Agent Marcus Webb stood motionless on the corner of Fifth and Madison, the afternoon sun casting his shadow long across the cracked pavement. His tailored charcoal suit, Italian wool precisely fitted, caught the light as sirens wailed from every direction. Red and blue strobed across storefronts, reflecting off car windows and the frightened faces of pedestrians who'd stopped mid-stride to witness the spectacle. The smell of burnt rubber hung in the air, mixing with exhaust fumes and the acrid tang of overheated asphalt. Somewhere behind him, a car alarm blared. A woman screamed. Footsteps scattered in panic as the crowd surged backward, phones already raised, fingers trembling over record buttons. Marcus's eyes, sharp, calculating, missing nothing, swept the scene in a fraction of a second. 6 officers, weapons drawn. 12 civilians within immediate danger range. Street camera on the northeast corner, angle approximately 45 degrees. Silver sedan, 3rd car down, engine running, tinted windows, 2 occupants watching. License plate, KLM 7394. His mind cataloged every detail with the precision of a man who'd spent 2 years, 3 months, and 14 days living on the knife's edge between life and death. 7 minutes, he thought. That's all I need. Officer Danny Reeves kept his Glock trained on Marcus's chest, his hands shaking slightly. At 28, Reeves had been on the force for 6 years, working his way up from traffic duty to this, a high-profile arrest that could make his career. His partner, Officer Sarah Chun, circled to Marcus's left, her weapon steady, her face set in hard lines. Hands where I can see them, Reeves barked again. Now! Marcus slowly raised his hands to shoulder height, palms open. The movement was fluid, controlled, non-threatening. But his eyes, those were different. They carried the weight of something deeper than fear, something that made Reeves's stomach tighten with an emotion he couldn't quite name. I need you to listen very carefully, Marcus said, his voice low and even, carrying the kind of authority that came from years of commanding rooms full of hardened criminals and skeptical politicians. There's been a misunderstanding. I'm going to reach into my jacket pocket, slowly, and show you my identification. Don't you fucking move, Reeves shouted, his voice cracking with adrenaline. We know who you are, Marcus Webb. We know what you did. The Riverside warehouse, the explosion, 3 officers injured. You were seen fleeing the scene. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone gasped. Marcus heard a teenage boy whisper to his friend, "Holy shit, that's the guy from the news." Stay calm, Marcus told himself, even as his mind raced through the implications. The Riverside warehouse had exploded 47 minutes ago, part of a coordinated strike against the Moretti crime family's drug distribution network. He'd been there, yes, but not as a perpetrator, as the lead investigator. Chun moved closer, her boots scraping against concrete. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Do it slowly. Marcus's wrist buzzed again, 3 short pulses. The signal from his tactical smartwatch, encrypted and invisible to anyone who didn't know what to look for. His backup team had received his emergency beacon. They were coming, but would they arrive in time? He turned slowly, his movements deliberate. The crowd pressed closer now, phones capturing every angle. He could see himself on their screens. A black man in an expensive suit, surrounded by white officers with guns drawn. He knew exactly how this looked. He'd seen it 1,000 times before on the news, in viral videos, in the case files that littered his desk. The difference was, this time he was the story. This is Marcus Webb, a woman's voice shouted from the crowd. A reporter, her microphone thrust forward, her camera operator pushing through the throng. Suspected in the Riverside warehouse bombing that injured 3 police officers. Sir, do you have anything to say? Marcus said nothing. His silence was strategic, calculated. Every word would be twisted, analyzed, used against him in the court of public opinion long before any judge ever heard his case. Officer Reeves grabbed Marcus's wrist roughly, yanking it behind his back. The metal cuffs were cold against his skin, clicking shut with a finality that sent another wave of murmurs through the crowd. "Easy," Chun warned her partner, though her eyes never left Marcus's face. Something in her expression suggested doubt, a flicker of uncertainty that Marcus filed away. 5 minutes, 30 seconds. An elderly black woman pushed to the front of the crowd, her shopping bags clutched to her chest. "Wait," she called out, her voice trembling but fierce. "Wait a minute. You're just gonna arrest this man without even asking him anything? Without checking who he is?" "Ma'am, step back," Reeves commanded, not even looking at her. "This is an active arrest. Move back now." But the woman didn't move. "I seen this before," she said, louder now, her voice carrying across the street. "I seen y'all do this before. Rush in, no questions, just assumptions. This man ain't even resisting. I said step back." Reeves's face flushed red. Marcus caught the woman's eye and gave the slightest shake of his head. "Don't make this worse for yourself," he wanted to tell her. "I'll be fine." But her intervention had shifted something in the crowd's energy. People were starting to question, starting to see. A young white man in a business suit stepped forward. "Officer, shouldn't you at least verify his identity? What if there's been a mistake?" "There's no mistake," Reeves snapped. "We have eyewitness testimony placing him at the scene. We have video footage. This man is a suspect in a federal crime." Marcus's jaw tightened. Video footage. That was new. Or rather, that was fabricated. The Morettas had been planning something like this for months. He'd intercepted communications about a frame job, a setup designed to take out the investigator who'd gotten too close to their operation. He just hadn't expected them to move this quickly. For minutes, 15 seconds. Behind the police barricade that was rapidly forming, Marcus noticed movement in the silver sedan. The passenger door opened slightly, then closed again. They were getting nervous. The Morettas had orchestrated this arrest to happen in public, to destroy his credibility before he could testify at next week's grand jury hearing. But they'd also planted someone to make sure he never made it to a police station alive. In the chaos of transport, accidents happened. A shot from the crowd. A desperate escape attempt gone wrong. Marcus had seen it before. Hell, he'd investigated it before. His mind flashed back. 2 years and 3 months ago, the day this investigation had begun. The briefing room at FBI headquarters. Walls lined with photos of bodies pulled from the Hudson River. Young men mostly. Drug runners who'd outlived their usefulness to the Moretti family. And in the center of the board, the face of Vincent Moretti. Smooth, smiling, untouchable. "This is the most dangerous family in the Northeast," Assistant Director Patricia Hawthorne had said, her voice tight with barely controlled rage. "They've corrupted judges, bought off senators, and murdered anyone who gets in their way. We need someone they won't see coming. Someone who can get close." Marcus had volunteered without hesitation. He'd grown up in neighborhoods where the Morettas peddled their poison. He'd lost his younger brother to an overdose when Marcus was still in college. This wasn't just an assignment. It was personal. The subsequent 2 years had been a masterclass in survival. He'd built an identity as a financial consultant, carefully inserting himself into the Morettas world of high-stakes money laundering. He'd sat across from Vincent Moretti himself, discussing offshore accounts while recording every word. He'd narrowly escaped death a dozen times. A car bomb that failed to detonate. A poison drink he'd switched at the last second. A staged mugging that he'd turned on his attackers. And through it all, he'd remained calm, professional, unshakable, just like now. "Get him in the car," Reeves ordered, grabbing Marcus's arm. Marcus allowed himself to be pushed forward, his eyes tracking every detail. The crowd had swelled to nearly 50 people now. The reporter was doing a live broadcast, and in the silver sedan, he could see the driver reaching into his jacket. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Officer Chun opened the patrol car door, one hand on her weapon. As Reeves pushed Marcus's head down to guide him into the back seat, Marcus made his move. "Officer Chan," he said quietly, his voice pitched so only she could hear. Check my right inside jacket pocket. There's a badge. FBI credentials. I'm Special Agent Marcus Webb, and I'm currently on an active federal investigation. Chen's eyes widened. What? FBI? Reeves laughed harshly. Nice try. You think we're stupid? Get in the car. But Chen had hesitated, her hand hovering near Marcus's jacket. Danny, maybe we should. Should what? Fall for some con artist story. Reeves shoved Marcus harder. Move it. Marcus's watch buzzed again, 2 long pulses. His team was 2 minutes out, but 2 minutes might as well be an eternity. In the sedan, the passenger door opened fully. A man in dark clothing stepped out, his hand inside his coat. Here we go, Marcus thought, his body tensing. The crowd suddenly surged forward as someone near the front stumbled. A teenage girl screamed. In the confusion, the man from the sedan began moving closer, using the chaos as cover. Marcus's training kicked into overdrive. He could see the scenario playing out. The shooter would fire into the crowd, create panic, then target Marcus in the confusion. The police would return fire. Civilians would be caught in the crossfire. By the time anyone sorted out what happened, Marcus would be dead. His investigation would be buried, and the Moretus would remain untouchable. Not today. Gun! Marcus shouted, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Silver sedan. Male suspect approaching with a concealed weapon. Every officer's head snapped toward the sedan. The man froze, suddenly exposed. 3 minutes. Reeves's grip on Marcus loosened slightly as he tried to process the new threat. Chen's hand moved to her radio. Dispatch. We need backup at Fifth and Madison, possible armed. The man from the sedan ran. Stop. Police. Officer Martinez, who'd been securing the perimeter, took off after him. In the confusion, Marcus saw his opening. Officer Chen, my credentials. Right inside pocket. Check them now, before this situation gets any worse. Chen's eyes darted between Marcus, her partner, and the fleeing suspect. Then, with a quick decision that Marcus would later learn saved both their lives, she reached into his jacket. Her fingers found the leather wallet. She flipped it open, and her face went pale. Danny, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Danny, stop. Stop right now. What? Reeves still had his hand on Marcus's arm, but his attention was divided between the fleeing suspect and his partner's strange reaction. Chun held up the badge, her hand shaking. The gold shield caught the afternoon light, the letters FBI gleaming unmistakably clear. Below it, the identification card with Marcus's photo, his rank, his clearance level. Oh my God, Chin breathed. Oh my God, he's telling the truth. The color drained from Reeves's face. His hand fell away from Marcus's arm as if burned. That can't be. Special Agent Marcus Webb, Chun read aloud, her voice gaining strength. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Active status. Level 5 clearance. She looked at Marcus, her expression a mixture of shock and dawning horror. Sir, we didn't know. We received a tip that... I know what you received, Marcus said calmly, his mind already piecing together the frame. You received a false report, planted evidence, and manufactured witness statements, all designed to discredit me before I testify at the federal grand jury in 6 days. The crowd had grown silent, everyone straining to hear. Phones still recorded, but now the narrative had shifted. This wasn't a criminal being arrested. This was something else entirely. 2 minutes, 15 seconds. Reeves fumbled with the handcuffs, his hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped the keys. Sir, I apologize. I had no idea, we were told. Save it, Marcus said, not unkindly. The cuffs clicked open, and he rubbed his wrists. Right now, we have a bigger problem. That man who ran, he wasn't some random bystander. He was here to kill me. And given the Moretti family's usual thoroughness, he's not working alone. As if on cue, a black SUV screeched around the corner, heading straight for their position. Chen's training overrode her shock. Everyone back. Clear the street. But the crowd was too dense, too slow to react. The SUV accelerated, and Marcus saw the rear window rolling down, saw the glint of metal. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Everything slowed. Marcus's mind calculated trajectories, angles, escape routes. The officers were out of position. The civilians were exposed. If shooting started, casualties were inevitable. He'd spent 2 years preparing for a moment like this. 2 years gathering evidence, building a case, staying alive against impossible odds. He wasn't going to let it end here on a street corner with innocent people caught in the crossfire. Chan, Reeves, get these people to cover. Marcus barked, his voice carrying the command authority of someone who'd led tactical operations. Now! The officers moved without thinking, years of training responding to the tone of absolute certainty. They began herding civilians toward storefronts, behind cars, anywhere that offered protection. Marcus ran toward the SUV. The crowd gasped. Someone screamed, "What is he doing?" What Marcus was doing was drawing fire. If they wanted him, they could have him, but not the civilians. But he didn't fire. "Federal agent!" he shouted, his voice echoing off buildings. "Drop the weapon and step out of the vehicle. This is your only warning." The shooter hesitated. In that split-second pause, Marcus saw the calculation in the young man's eyes. Success versus survival, loyalty versus self-preservation. The SUV's driver made the decision for him, slamming on the brakes. The sudden stop threw the shooter off balance. His weapon, an AR-15 style rifle, tilted upward. 45 seconds. Marcus didn't wait. He closed the distance in long strides, his weapon steady, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Step out of the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. Do it now." The rear door opened. The shooter stumbled out, his rifle clattering to the pavement. "Don't shoot," he stammered, hands raised. "Don't shoot. I was just supposed to scare you, man. Just scare you. They said you'd run. And then, down on the ground," Marcus commanded. "Face down. Hands behind your head." The young man complied, tears streaming down his face. Marcus kicked the rifle away, keeping his weapon trained on the suspect while scanning for additional threats. 30 seconds. The SUV's engine revved. The driver was going to run. Before Marcus could react, the street exploded with sound. Not gunfire, something else. Something massive. The roar of helicopter rotors. Marcus looked up to see 3 Black Hawks descending, their presence sudden and overwhelming. At the same moment, armored vehicles rounded both corners of the intersection, boxing in the SUV completely. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons ready, moving with the precision of elite operators. 15 seconds. FBI hostage rescue team. His backup had arrived. The SUV's driver threw the vehicle into park and raised his hands, knowing resistance was futile. Officer Reeves stood frozen, his mouth hanging open as he watched the tactical team secure the scene with breathtaking efficiency. Officer Chun had her radio to her ear, listening to what Marcus assumed was a frantic explanation from her dispatcher. The elderly woman who'd spoken up earlier was crying, her hands pressed to her chest. The young businessman looked stunned. The reporter was talking rapidly into her microphone, her camera operator capturing everything. And Marcus allowed himself the smallest smile. 7 minutes. From the lead helicopter, a rope dropped, and a woman in tactical gear fast roped down with practiced ease. Assistant Director Patricia Hawthorne hit the ground running, her expression fierce as she strode toward Marcus. "Agent Webb," she said formally, though her eyes sparkled with relief. "Status report." "2 suspects in custody, ma'am," Marcus replied, holstering his weapon. "Primary target still at large, but we've disrupted their immediate operations." The frame job was more sophisticated than anticipated. They'd planted evidence with local PD, created false witness statements, even manufactured video footage. The grand jury testimony is still viable. Hawthorne nodded, then turned to face the gathered crowd and police officers. She raised her voice, ensuring everyone could hear. "I'm Assistant Director Patricia Hawthorne, Federal Bureau of Investigation. The man you just witnessed being unlawfully detained is Special Agent Marcus Webb." the lead investigator on a 2-year operation targeting the Moretti organized crime family. The arrest attempt you witnessed was part of a coordinated effort to discredit and eliminate a federal agent. I want to be crystal clear. Agent Webb is not only innocent of any wrongdoing, he's one of the finest agents in the Bureau's history. The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and shocked exclamations. Phones captured every word. Hawthorne turned to the officers. I understand you were acting on information you believed to be credible. However, this incident will be thoroughly investigated. The fact that planted evidence was sufficient to trigger an arrest without verification of the suspect's identity raises serious questions about protocol. Officer Reeves looked like he wanted to disappear into the pavement. Officer Chun stood straighter, her jaw set. Ma'am, we should have verified. We made assumptions. That's on us. Marcus stepped forward. If I may, Assistant Director, Officers Chun and Reeves were responding to what appeared to be credible intelligence. The fault lies with those who manufactured that intelligence, not with officers trying to do their jobs. He met Chen's eyes. Though I would recommend additional training on verification procedures, particularly in high-profile cases. Chen nodded gratefully. Reeves couldn't meet his gaze. The tactical team had loaded both suspects into separate vehicles. The crowd began to disperse slowly, people still recording, still talking in animated voices about what they'd witnessed. The elderly woman approached Marcus, her shopping bags still clutched tight. Young man, she said, her voice soft but steady. I just wanted you to know. I seen what you did, drawing their fire away from us, running toward danger to keep us safe. Her eyes were wet. My grandson wants to be FBI someday. I'm gonna tell him about you. Marcus felt something catch in his throat. He trained himself to remain impassive, professional, controlled. But this simple recognition from a woman who'd stood up for him when she had every reason to stay silent, this broke through his armor. Thank you, he said quietly. That means more than you know. She patted his arm and walked away, her back straight, her dignity intact. As the tactical teams finished securing the scene and the police began the awkward process of filing reports about an arrest that had never actually happened, Marcus stood in the center of it all. His sharp suit rumpled, but his composure returned. Officer Reeves finally approached, his face ashen. Sir, I don't know what to say. I could have killed you. I had my weapon pointed at an FBI agent because I believed. His voice cracked. I believed what I was told without verifying, without thinking. Marcus studied him for a long moment. This was the moment that mattered. This was where change began, not in policy manuals or training seminars, but in individual hearts and minds confronting their own capacity for error. Officer Reeves, Marcus said, his voice firm but not harsh. You made a mistake, but you also have a choice now. You can let this moment destroy you, or you can let it transform you. You can become the kind of officer who questions, who verifies, who sees every person, regardless of what they look like, as deserving of dignity and due process. He paused. The question is, which officer are you going to be? Reeves swallowed hard, then nodded. The second one, sir. I swear to you, the second one. Then we're good, Marcus said simply, as the helicopters lifted off and the armored vehicles departed, leaving only the normal chaos of city traffic resuming. Assistant Director Hawthorne pulled Marcus aside. That was too close, she said quietly. If they'd gotten you in that patrol car, if their shooter had been 30 seconds faster. But they didn't, Marcus interrupted gently. And because they didn't, we now have 2 more witnesses to flip, more evidence of the Moretti's corruption, and proof that they're desperate enough to try to kill a federal agent in broad daylight. He smiled grimly. They just made our case stronger. Hawthorne shook her head in amazement. 2 years undercover, and you're still the calmest person in a crisis I've ever met. How do you do it? Marcus thought of his younger brother, of the promise he'd made at a funeral 15 years ago. He thought of every victim whose photo had lined that briefing room wall. He thought of the elderly woman who'd spoken up when no one else would, and the young man who wanted to be FBI someday. I remember what I'm fighting for, he said simply. That makes everything else just noise. 3 weeks later, Marcus sat in a federal courtroom, his sharp suit immaculate, his testimony devastating. The evidence he'd gathered over 2 years, recordings, documents, financial records, and now the testimony of 2 former Moretti soldiers who'd agreed to cooperate, painted an undeniable picture of corruption. Vincent Moretti sat at the defense table, his smooth smile finally cracked, his untouchable veneer shattered. When Marcus stepped down from the witness stand, he caught the eye of Officer Sarah Chin, sitting in the gallery in civilian clothes. She'd requested to attend, to see the case that had almost cost an innocent man his life. When their eyes met, she nodded once, respect acknowledged, lesson learned. Outside the courthouse, the elderly woman from that day on Fifth and Madison waited with her grandson, a bright-eyed teenager wearing an FBI junior agent t-shirt. Marcus spent 20 minutes talking with them, answering questions, offering encouragement. When they finally left, the young man turned back one last time. "Sir, thank you for showing me what courage looks like." Marcus watched them walk away, the afternoon sun warm on his face, the weight of 2 years finally lifting from his shoulders. He'd started this investigation seeking justice for his brother, for all the victims, for a system that too often looked the way when powerful people did terrible things. But somewhere along the way, he realized he'd found something more. He'd found proof that even in the darkest moments, even when weapons were drawn and crowds watched and death seemed certain, calm, clarity, and courage could change everything. 7 minutes had been all he needed. 7 minutes to maintain his composure, to protect innocent lives, to draw danger away from others and toward himself. 7 minutes that had felt like an eternity but had changed the course of justice. As Marcus walked down the courthouse steps, his phone buzzed with a message from Assistant Director Hawthorne. "The Moretti verdict is in. Guilty on all counts. 30 years to life. We did it." Marcus allowed himself a rare, genuine smile. Yes, he thought. Yes, we did. And in that moment, standing in the fading light of a city that had almost cost him everything, Special Agent Marcus Webb knew with absolute certainty that every second of those 2 years, every risk, every close call, every moment of keeping calm when chaos reigned around him, it had all been worth it. Behind him, the courthouse doors opened. Officer Danny Reeves emerged, wearing not his uniform but a suit. He was attending law school now, Marcus had heard, trying to change the system from within, using what he'd learned on Fifth and Madison as his motivation. Their eyes met. Reeves nodded, a gesture of respect that Marcus returned. Change was possible. Justice was possible. But only when people chose to see clearly, to question their assumptions, to remain calm in the storm, and to fight for what was right even when every instinct screamed to run. Marcus Webb had learned that lesson a long time ago. And on a busy street corner, in 7 minutes that shocked the world, he'd proven it beyond any doubt.